Hi everyone, and welcome to the third episode of my new series, Grinding Gears, which is about helping newer players get used to gears and improve. Now I wanted to make a quick mention of an issue I've seen a lot of newer players have that's driving myself and many of my friends insane while playing online. Now, this is one of the things that makes Gears a little bit different than a multiplayer game, so I understand why newer players might be having this issue, but it's definitely something that I wanted to make many people aware of. After doing a certain amount of damage to a player, enemies will drop into a down but not out state. This does not mean that they're dead. I know a lot of people are downing people and just leaving them be thinking that they have the kill. To finish off a player and to actually kill them, you have to shoot them while they're down but not out, or go up close to them and perform an execution. Like I said, I know this is very different from other multiplayer games, but it's definitely something that you want to be aware of. Because if you don't finish them off, and you leave them alone like I've seen a lot of people do, they'll either get back up after a period of time, or they can be helped up by their teammates. So please try to be aware of this and finish off kills when you can. Now I should also mention that if you see a teammate down, it's definitely a good idea to go over and help them up if the coast is clear. Now making sure an area around down teammate is safe is a crucial first step to reviving them, because many experienced players will sometimes use down foes as bait. You don't want to turn what might have been one kill for them into a very easy multi-kill if you could help it. Now when jumping into Gears of War for the first time, it can be a bit confusing and a little bit overwhelming while looking at all the new game types and figuring out what it is you want to play. And today, I'm going to break down what game types I feel are good for newer players. Now, like I said, I'm going to break down the game types, give my suggestions on what players I think are beneficial to newer players, but this by no means is meant to discourage newer players from playing any game type they want, or not playing the ones that I don't necessarily recommend for them. Now, this is just the ones that I think give players the best chance to learn from their mistakes and to play more. Now, the playlist I'd recommend for newer players are Team Deathmatch, King of the Hill, Guardian, and Dodgeball. Now one thing you'll notice that all these playlists have in common is the ability to respawn. As someone who started in Gears of War 1, I was often watching other people play from my death screen than I was actually playing game types like Warzone and Execution. And I do honestly feel like this kind of stunted my growth as a gamer while playing Gears of War 1. Now, this is also coupled by the fact that I had the attitude where I didn't want to learn from the people I was watching as I was down, so partially that's on me, and I understand that. But I do feel that these playlists are a good start because respawning game types give players more hands-on time with the game. All of these game modes, plus Warzone, are found in the social playlist, if you really don't want to go into ranked right off the bat. And one thing I'd like to mention too is that every versus game type is round-based. So if you lose the first round, all is not lost. There are plenty of opportunities to come back and win the match, so try not to get discouraged if your team loses the first round, even if it's by a wide margin. Now on to the game types. First off, I like to start with the playlist that I feel most new players will probably gravitate towards, as it's the one that they're most comfortable with, and that's Team Deathmatch. Now this is the standard game type for all shooters, so any player will feel at home here. The main difference in Gears of War is that instead of fighting to a certain score, you have a certain amount of lives. And after the first 15 or so have been taken away, each player is left with one alive, similar to Warzone and Execution. If you die during this time, you are out until the next round. And in my opinion, it's a great blend of a familiar game type that many players are used to, while introducing a Gears style of gameplay. I also know some old school players hate the fact this playlist is in Gears, but I feel it's a good game type to learn, and I feel like it's a great addition. Like I said, it still has a team deathmatch feel, and once all the lives are taken down and it's down to single life, you're basically playing Warzone at that point. So it gives them a little bit of introduction to Warzone and what that kind of high stress, high alert game type is like, while still giving them the chance to respawn throughout the match and learn from their mistakes, hopefully. To me, like I said, I know a lot of Other players don't. That's just my opinion. Next up is my favorite game type, King of the Hill. Again, this could be similar to anyone who has played any kind of domination style gameplay or King of the Hill in Halo. You know, there are hills that pop up that you can stay in while capturing them, and the first to 180 points wins the round. Now, this is my favorite game type personally due to the centralized combat and the pace. You know, where the hill is where the combat's going to be, so it's not really that hard to find out where people are. And as such, you know, newer players can learn to be in combat because they know where the combat's going to be. It's going to be either at the hill or at the power weapons. Now, it doesn't have any special attributes or anything, especially gears to it, and it's a very basic game type to grasp. It is important to know how to divide your team up and know when to go for power weapons and, you know, when you should rush hill. That's really about it. One thing I will say is the team with a better map control normally wins this game type, so it is a good place to learn how to best control the maps. Now, Guardian is similar to the VIP game type in Halo 3. Basically, one player on each team is chosen as the leader, and each team can respawn as long as the leader is alive. Once the enemy leader is dead, it becomes a single elimination for that team, so staying alive is very important at that point. It is very important that some teammates stay with your leader to avoid this and to make sure your teammate stays alive. Figuring out how to read your team is a very important part of playing this game. Figuring out how to stay alive as leader is very important. Figuring out what your role is in the game type is very important. Now, it's also very important to note that whoever kills the enemy leader will become the leader during the next round. So, you know, if you're not the best player but you get to jump on the leader and kill them, no, you're going to be the leader next round. So it's very, very important, like I said before, to know when you're a leader how to stay alive, how to stick with your team, when you have to run. It's definitely a very interesting game type. You know, as leader, you want to try to make sure you're not making risky plays, stay by your teammates, and try to stay alive as long as possible. Next up is Dodgeball, and this is a mode that's new to Gears of War 4. It's very, very similar to Warzone, but with the big difference being that when your team gets a kill, one of your teammates is brought back from the dead. So the idea is to eliminate the other team completely. However, like I said, once someone dies, a dead teammate comes back. So it's good to know that there's a list under the members that are still alive to show who's going to respawn next. So you have a little picture seeing who's alive up top. And right below that, you'll see a little column. And you will notice that your character will have a little circle around the icon down there, so you can see what order you are to respawn in case your team has multiple people dead. And it's also very important to know that it takes a few seconds for a teammate to respawn after getting a kill. So if you're the last person alive, you have to try your best to survive after getting a kill so that you can survive till help arrives and so your team can keep on going. This game mode can be a bit stressful, and it can also change dramatically in the blink of an eye, which makes it a lot of fun. Now, the next two game types I'm going to talk about are for a little bit more seasoned players, and will probably be where you will find a lot of them playing. These game types have a lot of downtime for newer players, and it can get a little bit frustrating. And again, I'm not trying to discourage newer players from trying these, but they're going to be filled with a bit more seasoned veterans probably, and they also are a bit more challenging to play. Now, I'm going to talk about Warzone and Execution together since they are very, very close to each other and basically the same game type with one really big difference. Both of these game modes are single elimination deathmatch game types, and the difference is that Warzone, you can fire at any down opponent and you can kill them. Doesn't matter where you hit them, doesn't matter with what weapon you shoot them, as long as you shoot them a little bit while they're down, they will eventually die. However, in Execution, you must kill the down opponents with either a headshot from certain weapons or with up-close execution, as the name entails. One thing to note is you can only find Execution in the competitive playlist, And these modes have been around from the beginning and are pretty much the bread and butter of what made Gears of War multiplayer great. Again, this is also why you will find a lot more of the more seasoned players, the more hardcore dedicated players in these playlists, which is one reason why I think you might want to step back from them for a little bit. But, you know, they are a lot of fun, and what do I know? You might enjoy this style of gameplay. So, again, it's all personal preference, but that's just my take on those game modes. The final game mode is also only found in the competitive playlist, and is the second new game type to Gears of War 4. Escalation is a mode that's very similar to King of the Hill, with some mildly interesting differences. And actually, instead of saying King of the Hill, I think I'd say more domination from Call of Duty and that style of gameplay. Now, first off, when you start the game, there's going to be no power buttons on the map in the first round. And after losing the round, the losing team will get a chance to place a power button on the map, and they can choose whether the power button is going to be a centralized one where both teams can rush, or power buttons that both teams will get. So, you know, if it's a sniper, both teams might get a sniper, and do you want to give the enemy team a sniper? It's really interesting and really a unique way to go about matches, because, you know, if you give both teams snipers and realize that the enemy team's got a better sniper than your team, well, maybe you'll spawn boom shot middle of the map, but you just have to hope that your team gets there and gets it first. So, it's a very neat chess match to think about. Now, like I said, it's very similar to domination in Call of Duty because there are 3 rings that you have to capture. And normally you just have to keep it to a point total, but I'll get into the win conditions in a little bit. Another thing I did want to talk about first, I was getting a little bit ahead of myself there, is that as the rounds go on, the time limit to respawn also increases with every death. So every death is a bit more punishing to the team as the game goes on. This is very important to understand, so basically dying in the first round does not carry the same weight it does in, say, the 13th round. You want to try to avoid death as much as possible the longer the games drag on. Like I was trying to say before, to win a round, you must either hit the score by holding the majority of the hills, or if you can capture all 3 hills at once, you automatically win. Which is a very, very interesting way of doing it. So instead of being able to mount and come back by going 3 hills down, 3 hills just ends the round. And it's a pretty good thing too, because escalation is the first to 7 rounds won. Because this game type is going to take a long time to complete a match, unless one team utterly dominates the other. This game mode is also, I believe, the premier competitive game type for Gears of War 4, so that's another reason why I'm kind of telling people to stay away from it if they're newer, because some of the more experienced players might be going toward this because this is what's going to be played in tournaments. Now again, I highly recommend giving all these game types a try, as they all offer unique experiences. Just understand that some of these game types are a bit more hardcore than others, and they're going to have a little bit more of the more hardcore fan base in them, so it might be a bit rough at first. Try your best to keep a positive attitude while playing and trying to learn the game. If you find yourself getting worked up, it's okay to take breaks and walk away, as I've always said. And again, going into playing bot matches in the versus CPU section will allow you to play all the game modes, I believe, except for execution and escalation. So again, it's a great place to go and practice these game modes. The only unfortunate thing is that in the versus CPU mode and in social, you can't choose the game types outright. You have to just depend on the map vote after the match, which does kind of suck, and I do wish they did have individual social playlists, but you know, you gotta try to keep the community bunched together so people can play as much as possible. So I understand why they did it. It's one of my little bit of gripes with Gears of War 4. Alright, so as always, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys will take away something from this, and I'll be back next time with a video analyzing the starting weapons of the game. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll spot you guys on the battlefield.